They thought they could ignore me for 20 years, then track me down for a payout. They expected their sweet, helpless mother. Instead, they found a stranger with a new name, an $80 million fortune, and a panic button I wasn't afraid to use. The turkey was 12 pounds of golden brown perfection, glistening under the chandelier light of the dining room in the Garden District. I had roasted it with rosemary and thyme, just the way my son Jamal liked it. Beside it sat the candied yams, bubbling with brown sugar and marshmallows, the dish my daughter Nia claimed she dreamed about all year in New York City. The table was set for 12, though only 3 of us mattered. The fine china, painted with delicate magnolias, sparkled against the red tablecloth. The crystal glasses were polished until they sang when you touched the rim. It was 7 o'clock in the evening on Christmas Eve, 20 years ago. By 8 o'clock, the steam had stopped rising from the gravy boat. By 9 o'clock, the ice in the water glasses had melted into sad, tepid puddles. By 10 o'clock, the silence in that big, beautiful house was louder than the cathedral bells ringing down on Street Charles Avenue. I sat at the head of the table, wearing the velvet dress I had bought specifically for this night. I kept telling myself it was the weather. Airports get delayed, traffic gets backed up, cell phone batteries die. I made excuses for them like I had been doing their entire lives. Jamal was busy. He was a sports agent in Los Angeles now, a big shot. Nia was a socialite in Manhattan. Her calendar was full. They would walk through that door any minute, laughing, shaking off the cold, apologizing with hugs that would make me forget the waiting. At midnight, the phone finally rang. I snatched it up so fast I nearly knocked over my wine glass. "Hello?" I breathless. "Jamal? Nia?" There was a pause. Then a mechanical female voice spoke, cold and indifferent. "The number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this line. Please hang up and try again." I stared at the receiver. I had not dialed anyone. I had just answered. But then I realized it was not a call coming in. It was a notification. I had tried to call Jamal earlier that day, leaving voicemail after voicemail. I had tried Nia yesterday. They hadn't just missed my calls. They had blocked me. On Christmas Eve, I sat there in the dining room of the house my husband and I had bought 40 years ago, the house where we raised them, the house where I had nursed them through chickenpox, paid for their tuitions, and wiped their tears. If you have ever poured your heart into someone who treated you like an option instead of a priority, you know exactly how cold that room felt. If you have ungrateful family members who only call when they need cash but forget you exist on holidays, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Do it for every parent who spent Christmas alone while their children partied on their dime. I stood up. I walked to the head of the table. I looked at the turkey, the yams, the untouched wine. I did not cry. Crying is for people who still have hope. I had something else. I had clarity. I picked up the carving knife. I cut a single slice of turkey. I put it on a plate. I ate it alone, in silence. And when I was finished, I made a promise to the woman reflected in the dark window pane. Viola Freeman died that night. 20 years later, Los Angeles, California. The sun was shining, but it wasn't shining on Jamal Freeman. Jamal was 45 years old, but he looked 50. He sat in his rented Porsche Cayenne, staring at the piece of paper taped to the steering wheel. It was a foreclosure notice for his condo in Marina del Rey. "Unbelievable," he muttered, crumpling the paper. "Do they know who I am?" The problem was, everyone knew who he was. He was Jamal Freeman, the guy who used to represent 3 NBA starters until he developed a nasty habit of betting against his own clients. He was the guy who borrowed money from the wrong loan sharks in Vegas. He was the guy who was currently $120,000 in debt, with a credit score lower than his blood pressure. He slammed his fist against the dashboard. He needed liquidity. Fast. He needed a miracle. His phone buzzed. It was Nia. "Please tell me you have good news," Jamal said, answering without saying hello. "If by good news you mean my landlord is threatening to change the locks, then yes, it is fantastic." Nia's voice crackled through the speakers. She sounded tinny and panicked. Nia was 42, living in a sublet on the Upper East Side of Manhattan that she couldn't afford. She had spent the last decade pretending to be an heiress, telling her wealthy friends that her parents were oil money from Louisiana who had tragically died in a plane crash. It sounded better than the truth, that her father was a hard-working mechanic who died of a heart attack, and her mother was a caterer she hadn't spoken to since the funeral. "I need 50 grand, Jamal," Nia snapped. "Or I am on the street. And I am not doing the street. I have an image. I don't have $50. Let alone 50 grand, Jamal spat. "I am done, Nia. They are going to take the car tomorrow." Silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of their own failures. They were twins in selfishness, identical in their ability to ruin a good thing. "Wait," Nia said slowly. "What about the house?" "What house?" "Mama's house," Nia said. "In the Garden District. That place has to be worth what? 2 million now? Maybe 3? The market in New Orleans is crazy." Jamal frowned. "Mama's house? Is she still alive?" "Who knows?" Nia scoffed. "She was old 20 years ago. If she is alive, she is probably senile, sitting in a rocking chair, drooling on herself. So what are you saying?" "I am saying we go down there," Nia said, her voice gaining strength. "We check her into a state facility, one of those government-funded ones, so it is free. We get power of attorney. We sell the house. We split the cash." Jamal sat up straight. The idea washed over him like a cold drink on a hot day. It was perfect. It was ruthless. It was exactly the kind of move he prided himself on making. 3 million, he mused. "That is 1.5 each. Minus closing costs," Nia corrected. "But yes, it solves everything. She doesn't need that big house. She is probably just rattling around in there like a ghost anyway. We are doing her a favor. If you know someone who thinks they are entitled to an inheritance they didn't earn, someone who waits for their parents to decline just so they can cash out, hit the like button right now. Let's expose the greed that hides behind family concern." "Book the flight," Jamal said. "Meet me at Louis Armstrong Airport tomorrow at noon. We are going home." The humidity in New Orleans hit them the moment they stepped out of the terminal. It was thick, heavy, and smelled of swamp water and jasmine. Jamal and Nia rented a mid-size sedan. Nia complained that it wasn't a Mercedes and drove straight to the Garden District. They talked the whole way about what they would do with the money. Jamal was going to pay off the sharks and buy back into a poker game. Nia was going to lease a penthouse in Soho and launch a lifestyle brand. They pulled onto First Street. The oak trees arched over the road, creating a tunnel of green shade. The mansions lined the street, grand and imposing, with their wrought iron fences and manicured lawns. "There it is," Jamal said, pointing. "Number 1420. He pulled the car to the curb. They got out, staring at the house. It was immaculate. The white pillars gleamed. The porch wrapped around the front like a welcoming arm. The garden was a riot of azaleas and hydrangeas. "Damn," Nia whistled. "It looks better than I remember. We can definitely get 3 million for this. Maybe 4 if we stage it right." They walked up the stone path. Jamal adjusted his blazer, preparing his concerned son face. Nia checked her makeup in her compact mirror, practicing a tearful reunion smile. Jamal rang the doorbell. They waited. No answer. He rang it again, harder this time. "Maybe she is asleep," Nia whispered. "Or deaf." Footsteps approached from inside. The heavy oak door swung open. Standing there was a woman. She was white. She was about 35, wearing yoga pants and holding a baby on her hip. She smiled politely. "Can I help you?" Jamal blinked. He looked at the number on the house, then back at the woman. Yes. We are looking for Viola Freeman." Is she working today?" He assumed this woman must be a nurse or a housekeeper. The woman frowned, shifting the baby. "Viola Freeman? I don't know anyone by that name." Nia stepped forward, her heels clicking on the porch. "She owns this house. She is our mother. We are here to see her. Is she inside?" The woman laughed, a confused, bubbly sound. "I think you have the wrong address. My husband and I have owned this house for 15 years. We bought it from a developer in 2005. Jamal felt the blood drain from his face. "A developer? Who did the developer buy it from?" "I am not sure," the woman said. "We bought it as a foreclosure flip, actually. But it's been the Anderson residence for a decade and a half. Are you sure you have the right street? Yes, I am sure, Jamal snapped, his temper flaring. I grew up in this house. My room was right there. He pointed to a second-story window. The woman took a step back, her smile fading. Sir, I am going to have to ask you to lower your voice. There is no Viola Freeman here. Please leave my property. She slammed the door. The lock clicked loudly. Jamal and Nia stood on the porch, staring at the wood grain. Foreclosure? Nia hissed. Did she lose the house? Did she gamble it away? Jamal, if she lost our inheritance, I will kill her. She didn't lose it, Jamal said, his mind racing. Mama was obsessed with bills. She paid everything early. She wouldn't just lose a paid-off house. Then where is she? They spent the next 6 hours frantically searching. They went to the parish records office. They stood in line for 40 minutes, sweating in their expensive clothes. When the clerk finally pulled the deed history, Jamal snatched the paper. Sale date: the 15th of January 2005. Seller: Viola Freeman. Buyer: L&M Properties, LLC. Sale price: $2.1 million. She sold it, Jamal whispered, staring at the number. 20 years ago. $2 million. $2 million? Nia shrieked. Where is the money? Where did she go? It says she moved. The clerk droned, bored. No forwarding address on the deed. Check the death records, Nia demanded. Maybe she died right after. Maybe the money is sitting in an unclaimed estate account. The clerk typed slowly. No death certificate for a Viola Freeman in the state of Louisiana. They walked out of the office into the blinding afternoon sun. They were hot, tired, and terrified. The safety net they had come to steal had vanished. We need a professional, Jamal said, pulling out his phone. I know a guy, a private investigator. He is expensive, but he finds people who don't want to be found. We can't afford a private investigator, Nia argued. We can't afford not to, Jamal countered. If she has $2 million sitting in a bank account somewhere, I will spend my last dime finding it. Mr. Miller was not a nice man. He was a short, bald white man with a stain on his tie and an office that smelled of stale cigar smoke and desperation. But he was effective. He charged Jamal $500 for the consultation, which Jamal paid with a credit card that was 2 days away from being canceled. Viola Freeman, Miller grunted, looking at the photo Jamal provided. It was an old picture, 20 years old, of a smiling, soft-faced black woman holding a tray of biscuits. You kids miss your mommy? Just find her, Nia said, crossing her arms. She is mentally unstable. We are worried about her assets. I mean, her safety. Miller typed on his computer for 20 minutes, while Jamal and Nia paced. The hum of the hard drive was the only sound in the room. Well, Miller said finally, leaning back in his creaky chair. Your mommy isn't unstable. She is smart. What do you mean? She didn't just move, Miller said, turning the screen so they could see. She erased herself. Legal name change granted in March of 2005. Viola Freeman ceased to exist. Changed her name? Jamal asked. To what? Evelyn Saint, Miller read. Sounds fancy. Where is she? Nia demanded. Is she in a home? Miller laughed, a dry, hacking sound. A home? Yeah, you could call it that. If your idea of a home is a 12,000-square-foot compound in Aspen, Colorado. Aspen? Jamal and Nia said in unison. Evelyn Saint, Miller continued, reading from a dossier. Philanthropist, early investor in a little company called Rivertech, you know, the one that makes the microchips for every smartphone on the planet? She bought in at $2 a share in 2005 with the proceeds from a house sale. Stock is trading at $400 today. Jamal did the math in his head. The numbers made him dizzy. $2 million invested 20 years ago in a tech unicorn. She is worth. Jamal's voice failed him. Estimates put her net worth north of $80 million. Miller grinned, showing yellow teeth. Congratulations, kids. You hit the jackpot. Nia grabbed Jamal's arm, her nails digging into his suit jacket. 80 million. Jamal, 80 million. She is in Aspen? Jamal asked, his voice trembling with greed. 101 Ridgeview Drive, Miller said, printing out a sheet. Gated community, very private. But hey, your family, right? I'm sure she'll be thrilled to see you. Jamal snatched the paper. He didn't hear the sarcasm. He only heard the cha-ching of a slot machine paying out the grand prize. We are going to Aspen, Jamal declared, his eyes wild. Tonight. What if she doesn't recognize us? Nia asked, suddenly anxious. It's been 20 years. She is our mother, Jamal said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. Mothers forgive everything. We just have to cry a little, apologize for being busy, and hug her. Once we are in the house, we don't leave until our names are on those accounts. They rushed out of the office, leaving Miller chuckling behind them. They didn't see the predator watching them go. They thought they were the hunters. They had no idea they were flying straight into the lair of a dragon who had spent 20 years sharpening her claws. They booked 2 first-class tickets to Colorado on a card that was declined twice before going through. They toasted with cheap airport champagne, laughing about crazy old mama and her accidental fortune. If you hate it when people mistake kindness for weakness, when they think they can walk back into a life they abandoned just because they smell money, you need to watch what happens next. Because Viola Freeman might be dead, but Evelyn Saint is very, very alive, and she doesn't do hugs. The air in Aspen, Colorado hit Jamal and Nia differently than the humidity of New Orleans. It was thin, sharp, and smelled of pine needles and money. They stepped off the plane at the small, private airport, having flown commercial into Denver and then taken a connecting puddle jumper, and shivered. Neither of them had packed for winter. Nia was wearing a light trench coat over a cocktail dress, and Jamal was in his LA weight linen suit. They looked out of place, like tropical birds blown off course by a storm. They rented an SUV this time, a black Range Rover, putting it on the absolute limit of Jamal's last functioning credit card. We have to look the part, Jamal insisted as he adjusted the rearview mirror. We can't roll up to an $80 million estate in a Kia. Just drive, Nia snapped, shivering in the passenger seat. My teeth are chattering. I hate the cold. Why did she have to move to the Arctic? Because rich people love being cold, Jamal said, peeling out of the lot. It preserves them, like cryogenics. They drove through the town of Aspen, passing designer boutiques that sold $3,000 sweaters and art galleries displaying sculptures made of twisted metal. The wealth here was quiet, understated, and terrifyingly exclusionary. It wasn't loud like LA or flashy like New York. It was the kind of wealth that whispered, "If you don't belong here, we already know." The GPS led them out of town and up a winding mountain road. The trees grew thicker, the air thinner. Snow lined the banks of the asphalt, pristine and white. Ridgeview Drive, the GPS announced. They turned onto a private road. A sign made of slate and steel read, "Private property. No trespassing. Armed response. Friendly," Nia muttered. "She's protecting the assets," Jamal said, licking his lips. "Our assets." They rounded a final curve, and the house came into view. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress of glass and steel, cantilevered over the edge of a cliff. It looked like a spaceship that had landed in the forest. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the mountains and the gray sky. A massive stone chimney anchored the structure to the earth. It was cold, modern, and breathtakingly expensive. Jamal stopped the car at the massive iron gate. He rolled down the window and pressed the intercom button. "Yes?" A voice crackled. It wasn't a warm southern voice. It was crisp, professional, and definitely white. "We are here to see Evelyn Saint," Jamal said, projecting his best important agent voice. "We are family." There was a long pause. The wind whistled through the pine trees. "Names?" the voice asked. "Jamal Freeman and Nia Freeman," Jamal said. "Her children?" Another pause. Longer this time. Jamal looked at Nia. Nia checked her makeup, her hands trembling slightly. "1 moment," the voice said. A minute passed. Then 2. Jamal was about to press the button again when the heavy gates began to swing open silently. "We are in," Jamal whispered, grinning. "Showtime, baby. Remember the plan. Cry. Apologize. Hug." They drove up the heated driveway, which was perfectly dry despite the snow around it. They parked in front of the massive front door made of frosted glass and dark wood. They got out. Before they could ring the bell, the door opened. A woman stood there. She was tall, severe, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a black uniform that looked more like a business suit than a maid's outfit. "Mr. and Mrs. Freeman," she said without smiling. "Madame Saint is in the atrium. Please follow me. Do not touch the art." She turned and walked away. Jamal and Nia exchanged a look, "Madame Saint," and followed. The inside of the house was like a museum. The floors were polished concrete. The walls were white and hung with abstract paintings that looked like violent slashes of color. There were sculptures on pedestals. It was silent, except for the click of the housekeeper's heels and the crackle of a fire somewhere in the distance. They walked down a long hallway that opened into a massive room with 20-foot ceilings. The entire back wall was glass, offering a view of the snow-capped peaks that would make an atheist believe in God. Standing in front of a fireplace that was 6 feet wide was a woman. She had her back to them. She was wearing cream-colored cashmere trousers and a matching turtleneck. Her hair was silver, cut into a sharp, chic bob. She held a crystal glass of white wine in one hand. "Madame," the housekeeper said softly. "The guests." The woman turned slowly. Jamal and Nia stopped breathing. It was her. It was Viola. But it wasn't. The Viola they remembered was soft. She wore floral aprons. She smelled of yeast and vanilla. She had a laugh that shook her shoulders and a hug that could swallow you whole. Her eyes were always warm, always searching for a reason to forgive you. This woman was steel. Her face was the same, yes, the same high cheekbones, the same dark skin, but the expression was unrecognizable. Her eyes were cool, detached, assessing them like a banker assessing a high-risk loan. She didn't smile. She didn't gasp. She didn't drop her glass. She just took a sip of wine. "Thank you, Greta," she said to the housekeeper. Her voice was deeper, devoid of the New Orleans lilt. It sounded clipped, precise. "That will be all." Greta nodded and vanished. Jamal stepped forward, opening his arms wide. "Mama!" he cried, his voice cracking perfectly. "Oh my God, Mama, we found you!" He rushed toward her, expecting the embrace, expecting the melt. Evelyn Saint didn't move. She didn't open her arms. She simply took a small, deliberate step back and raised a hand, palm out. "Stop," she said. The word was quiet, but it hit Jamal like a slap. He froze, arms still open. "Mama," he whispered. "It's me, Jamal, and Nia." Nia stepped up beside him, tears already streaming down her face. "Mama, we were so worried. We went to the house, and it was gone, and we thought something terrible had happened." Evelyn watched them. She looked at Jamal's linen suit, wrinkled from travel. She looked at Nia's tear-streaked foundation. She looked at them with absolutely zero recognition. "I believe you have made a mistake," Evelyn said calmly. "I do not have children." Jamal lowered his arms. "What? Mama, stop playing. It's been 20 years, I know, but—" "20 years is a long time," Evelyn interrupted. "Long enough for memories to fade, long enough for people to die." "You aren't dead," Nia sobbed, stepping closer. "You are standing right here. Look at us." "I am your daughter. I look just like you." Evelyn took a sip of wine. "You look like a woman who is desperate for money," she observed dryly, "and he looks like a man who is running from a debt collector." Jamal flushed. "How? How do you know that?" "I read the news," Evelyn said, walking over to a sleek side table and setting her glass down on a coaster. "Jamal Freeman, sports agent, sued for fraud last year, license suspended, condo in foreclosure, and Nia Freeman, divorced, evicted from a sublet on 72nd Street 3 days ago." The room went silent. The fire crackled. You have been watching us?" Nia whispered, horrified. "I watch the market," Evelyn corrected. "I watch investments, and sometimes I watch liabilities." "So you admit it," Jamal shouted, pointing a finger at her. "You are our mother. You are Viola Freeman, and you have been sitting up here in this ice castle with $80 million while your own children starved." Evelyn turned to face him fully. Her eyes flashed, not with anger, but with cold amusement. "Viola Freeman," she said, savoring the name like a strange word in a foreign language. "I remember her. She was a weak woman. She was a woman who cooked and cleaned and gave everything she had. She paid for tuitions, she paid for weddings, she paid for bail." "Yes," Jamal said. "That was you." "No," Evelyn said softly. "That woman died. She died on Christmas Eve, 20 years ago. She sat at a table set for 12 people who never came. She waited for a phone call that never rang. And somewhere between the carving of the turkey and the stroke of midnight, her heart stopped beating. She walked closer to them, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. "I am Evelyn Saint. I was born the next morning, and Evelyn Saint does not have children. She has a portfolio, she has a foundation, she has peace." "This is insane," Nia spat, dropping the crying act. "You can't just decide you aren't our mother. It is biology. It is DNA. "It is a contract," Evelyn countered. "And you breached it. You abandoned the post. You blocked the number. You erased me. I simply returned the favor." "We were busy," Jamal yelled. "We were building our lives. We were young." "You were selfish," Evelyn corrected. "And now you are broke, and you think you can walk in here, perform a little scene, shed a few tears, and I will write you a check? Is that the plan?" Jamal clenched his fists. The charm was gone. The desperation was taking over. "It is our inheritance, Mama. Dad helped build that business too. That money belongs to the family." "There is no family," Evelyn said. "There is just me, and you are trespassing." "We aren't leaving," Nia said, crossing her arms. "We aren't leaving until you help us. We are your flesh and blood. How can you be so cold?" Evelyn looked at Nia. "Cold? Darling, I live in Aspen. I learned to love the cold. It keeps things preserved. It keeps the rot away." "Give us the money," Jamal growled, stepping forward aggressively. He was big, imposing. He was used to intimidating people. "Give us 5 million. Each, and we will leave you alone in your ice palace. But if you don't, we will go to the press. We will tell everyone that the great philanthropist Evelyn Saint is a monster who abandoned her kids." Evelyn didn't flinch. She didn't back down. She looked at Jamal's fist, then up at his eyes. "Go ahead," she said softly. "Tell them. Tell them you abandoned a widow for 20 years. Tell them you only came back when the checks bounced. See who they believe." Jamal lunged. He didn't mean to hit her, maybe just to grab her, to shake her, to make the statue crack. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into the cashmere. "Listen to me, old woman," he started. Evelyn didn't scream. She didn't struggle. With her free hand, she reached into her pocket and pressed a small, silver button on a fob she was holding. A silent alarm tripped. "Get your hands off me," she said, her voice dropping to absolute zero. Jamal let go, shoving her back slightly. "You owe us. You owe us everything." "I owe you nothing," Evelyn said, straightening her sweater. "But I will give you something. I will give you a lesson in consequences." She walked back to the fireplace and picked up her wine glass. "The sheriff is named Grady," she said conversationally. "He is a good man. His station is 3 minutes away. I donated the new K9 unit last year. He takes trespassing very seriously, especially when the trespassers assault an elderly woman in her own home." "We didn't assault you!" Nia shrieked. "He grabbed me," Evelyn said calmly. "And I have cameras everywhere." She pointed to a small, discreet lens in the corner of the ceiling. Jamal looked at the camera. He looked at the glass walls. He looked at the snow falling outside, trapping them in this beautiful, terrifying cage. "Let's go, Nia," Jamal said, panic rising in his chest. "We'll get a lawyer. We'll sue her for the estate." "You can't afford a lawyer," Evelyn reminded them, "and you can't leave. The gate automatically locks when the panic button is pressed. You are trapped." She took a sip of wine. "So," she said, "while we wait for the police, would you like a drink? I believe I have a bottle of whiskey somewhere. It was your father's favorite, but then again, you probably don't remember what he liked." Jamal and Nia stared at her. The woman they came to rob was gone. The mother they came to manipulate was dead. Standing in front of them was a stranger with a checkmate in her eyes. And the sirens were already wailing in the distance, getting louder with every second. The sirens did not wail like they did in Los Angeles or New York. In the thin mountain air of Aspen, they sounded sharper, piercing the silence of the snow-covered forest like a knife. Blue and red lights began to dance across the glass walls of the atrium, reflecting off the abstract art and the terrified faces of my children. Jamal and Nia were pacing like caged animals. The heavy iron gates outside had locked automatically when I pressed the panic button, and the front door was mag-locked. They were trapped in the very fortress they had come to plunder. "You have to tell them it was a misunderstanding," Nia pleaded, her mascara running down her cheeks in dark, ugly rivulets. "Mama, please. If I get arrested, I lose my sublet. I lose everything." "You lost everything the day you decided I was a bank account instead of a human being," I said, taking a slow sip of my wine. It was a vintage Chardonnay, crisp and oaky. I savored it. "We are family," Jamal shouted, sweating through his linen suit. "They won't arrest us. We have rights. We are here to see our mother." "You are here to see Viola Freeman," I corrected calmly. "And as I told you, she is not here." The heavy front door clicked and hissed as the magnetic seal released from the outside. 3 uniformed officers stepped into the hallway, snow blowing in behind them. Leading them was Sheriff Grady. Sheriff Grady was a good man. He was a tall, broad-shouldered white man with a mustache that looked like it had been carved from granite. We played chess on Tuesdays at the community center. I had donated the funds for the department's new body cameras. He knew exactly who I was, and more importantly, he knew who I was not. "Mrs. Saint," Grady said, his hand resting on his holster, his eyes scanning the room. "We got the panic alarm. Are you injured?" "I am fine, Sheriff," I said, setting my glass down. "But I have been threatened and assaulted." "Assaulted?" Jamal laughed, a high, nervous sound. "Officer, nobody assaulted anyone. She is our mother. She is having a dementia episode. She doesn't know who we are." Grady looked at Jamal. He looked at the linen suit that was too thin for the weather, the desperate eyes, the sweat. Then he looked at me. I was standing straight, composed, the picture of sanity. "Episode?" Grady repeated flatly. "Son, Mrs. Saint is the sharpest woman in this county. Who are you?" "I am Jamal Freeman," Jamal said, puffing out his chest. "I am her son, and this is my sister, Nia. We came from Los Angeles and New York to check on her welfare. We found out she was living here alone, and we were worried." "Worried," I echoed. "Sheriff, these people broke into my property. They demanded money, $5 million each, to be precise. And when I refused, this man grabbed me." I rolled up the sleeve of my cashmere sweater. On my forearm, distinct and red, were the marks of Jamal's fingers. Grady's face darkened. "You put your hands on her?" "I was trying to hug her," Jamal lied, backing up. "She is confused. She changed her name. Look, her real name is Viola Freeman. Run her, Prince. Do whatever you have to do. She is our mother." "Sheriff," I said, walking over to the sleek black desk in the corner of the room. "If you will allow me." I opened the drawer and pulled out a thick leather binder. I had kept this binder for 20 years. It was my insurance policy against this exact moment. "This is a legal decree from the state of Louisiana, dated March 15, 2005, I said, handing the document to Grady. "It confirms the legal name change of Viola Freeman to Evelyn Saint. It also documents the sale of all assets in New Orleans." Grady put on his reading glasses. He scanned the paper. "And this?" I continued, handing him a second document, "is a draft of a restraining order I prepared the same year. I never filed it because I simply vanished. But it details the neglect and emotional abandonment I suffered. It establishes a pattern." "That is a lie," Nia screamed. "We never abandoned you. We were busy." "Sheriff," I said, my voice cutting through Nia's shrieks. "Do I look like a woman who is being held against her will? Do I look like a woman who needs welfare checks from 2 strangers who have not spoken to me in 2 decades? Grady closed the binder. He handed it back to me. "No, ma'am," he said. "You look like a woman who wants these trespassers off her property." "Trespassers?" Jamal gasped. "We are her heirs." "You are suspects," Grady corrected. He turned to his deputies. Cuff them! The room erupted into chaos. Nia fell to her knees, sobbing for real this time. No, please, I can't go to jail. I have a reputation. Jamal tried to run. He actually tried to bolt for the glass door leading to the terrace, forgetting that there was a 50-foot drop off the cliff on the other side. 2 deputies tackled him before he got 3 steps. They pinned him to the polished concrete floor, his nose pressed against the cold stone. You can't do this, Jamal screamed, his face turning purple. Mama, tell them who we are. I stood by the fire. I watched the scene unfold with a detachment that surprised even me. I felt no pity. I felt no guilt. I felt only the cold, hard satisfaction of a balance sheet finally zeroing out. Mama! Nia wailed as a deputy pulled her hands behind her back. Please, we are your babies. I looked at them. I remembered changing their diapers. I remembered soothing their fevers. I remembered the nights I worked double shifts catering weddings so Jamal could have basketball shoes and Nia could have piano lessons. I remembered the Christmas dinner sitting cold on the table. My babies, I said softly so only they could hear, would have called. My babies would have come. I turned my back on them. I walked to the fireplace and picked up the iron poker. I jabbed at the logs, sending a shower of sparks up the chimney. Get them out of my house, Sheriff, I said to the flames, and press full charges: trespassing, assault, attempted extortion. Understood, Mrs. Saint, Grady said. Let's go. Move it. I heard the scuffle of feet. I heard the click of handcuffs. I heard the heavy front door open and close, sucking the noise out of the room and leaving only the sound of the wind and the fire. I did not turn around to watch them leave. I did not wave goodbye. When the room was silent again, Greta, my housekeeper, stepped out from the shadows of the hallway. She held a fresh glass of wine. Shall I call the cleaning crew, madam? She asked. The gentleman scuffed the floor. Please, I said, taking the glass. And Greta? Burn the chair he sat in. The Pitkin County Jail is not a luxury resort. It is clean, efficient, and very, very boring. Jamal and Nia sat in separate holding cells, stripped of their expensive coats, their phones, and their dignity. Jamal used his one phone call to dial the number of Mr. Miller, the private investigator who had sent them on this fool's errand. Miller! Jamal shouted into the receiver when the man answered. You have to help us. She had us arrested. We are in jail in Aspen. There was a pause on the line, followed by the sound of a lighter clicking and a deep inhale. Arrested, huh? Miller's voice was raspy with amusement. Well, that is unfortunate. Did you get the money? No, we didn't get the money, Jamal screamed. She is a monster. She called the sheriff. You have to bail us out. We will pay you double when we get back to L.A. Miller laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. Kid, your credit card declined for the plane tickets? You think I am going to front bail money in a ski town? I checked your financials, Jamal. You are underwater. You are drowning. And honestly, I got my $500 consultation fee. My job is done. I will sue you, Jamal threatened. I will tell everyone you set us up. Good luck with that, Miller said. And hey, if you see your mother again, tell her I admire her style. That lady is ice cold. The line went dead. Jamal stared at the phone. For the first time in his life, there was no one to call, no mother to fix it, no sister to scheme with, just the gray walls and the realization that he was exactly where he belonged. Back at the estate, the snow had stopped falling. The moon had broken through the clouds, illuminating the white peaks of the Rockies. I sat in my favorite armchair by the window, the one that looked out over the valley. The house was quiet. For 20 years, I had feared this day. I had feared that if I saw them, I would crumble, that the mother in me would override the survivor. But looking at my reflection in the glass, I saw only Evelyn Saint. Viola Freeman had been a woman defined by who she served. She was a mother, a wife, a caterer. She gave pieces of herself away until there was nothing left but a shell, waiting by a phone. Evelyn Saint was defined by what she owned. She owned her time, she owned her peace, and tonight she owned her past. I took a sip of wine and thought about the concept of family. We are told that blood is thicker than water. We are told that family is a bond that cannot be broken. But what they do not tell you is that sometimes, family is the anchor that drowns you. And to survive, you have to cut the rope. It was not revenge. It was not malice. It was simply the law of the harvest. They had planted silence, and now they were reaping the quiet. I picked up my phone. I opened my banking app. I transferred another $100,000 to the local foster care program I supported. I helped children who had no parents, so they would never have to feel the way I did on that Christmas Eve. Then, I turned off the lights. The glass house disappeared into the dark mountain, just a ghost on the ridge. If you are watching this, and you are holding on to a relationship that hurts you just because you share a last name, listen to me closely. You are not a bad person for choosing yourself. You are not cruel for demanding respect. And you are never, ever too old to change your name, sell the estate, and become the hero of your own story. If this story gave you the chills, or if you just love seeing justice served cold, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to know that it is okay to walk away. And make sure you subscribe, because I have a lot more stories from the life of Evelyn Saint, and believe me, the ledger is full. Good night. And remember, the best revenge is not screaming. It is living so well that they become strangers to your success.